Hey, 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 and thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are here live, I am Jessica Hayes, founder of the Lockbox Advantage, and today we are going to be talking about the importance of building your personal brand. Now, this is a service that obviously we provide at LBA where we will sit down and work with agents to help kind of really present themselves the best way that they can. Now, you don't need a professional to do that. If this is something that you are wanting to kind of attack on your own, I fully support it. And I really think it's something that every single agent should take very, very seriously. So, with that in mind, I am going to go ahead and give you the lowdown on exactly what we do as a company, the questions we ask, the thoughts that we run through in order to come up with the best possible brand for every single one of our customers. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get my slides up here. I think you can see, I assume. All right, so the basics of building your brand. Guys, first we have to understand what a brand is, right? And it's the distinct impression that you leave in people's minds representing what you stand for and how you differentiate yourself from others. In its simplest form, that is what your brand is. And that is what you need to communicate through imagery, through messaging, through delivery. And a lot of times people make the mistake of confusing a brand with a logo. Now, we've got two very recognizable logos on the screen right now. We've got Nike, we've got Marriott. Now, my opinion is that Nike has a much stronger brand than Marriott. And I say that because if you were to right now in your mind's eye, imagine that Nike opened up a new line of luxury hotels. I bet that you would have a clear image of what the lobby of that hotel would look like, right? If you're thinking about it. Now, I want you to flip that. Imagine for a moment that Marriott came out with a new line of shoes. What do you think their shoes would look like? I have no idea. And I think that is the difference between a logo and a brand. And just for kicks and giggles, I asked this very question to some different AI platforms. I asked AI image generators to show me what the lobby of a luxury hotel owned by Nike might look like. And this is what it generated. And this literally could have been pulled from my brain, particularly this middle picture. This is really what I imagined, right? Now, I asked the same question for Marriott. What would shoes by Marriott look like? And I got three distinctly different responses. Colors are relatively similar based on the color of the logo, but the type of shoe, the style of the shoe, the purpose of the shoe, completely different across all three samples, right? We've got a walking shoe, a basketball shoe, and a dress shoe. What in the world? And that's the difference, you guys. We want your brand to be so clear that your consumers feel your whole brand like in their soul. They know exactly who you are, what you represent, what they expect from you. They could go out and see one of your events without noticing your branding and say, hey, that looks like X, because your brand is so clear. And so, how do we do that, right? Like, that's the question on everybody's mind. How do you build a personal brand that is so laser focused and clear that every single one of your consumers can relate to it? And so, we're going to go over the questions that we asked to make that happen for our customers. So, first, we got to do some visual reflection, right? And don't worry, guys, I'm going to post these slides. Like, don't feel the need to screenshot or anything. You're going to get these in the follow up. But when people see your brand, what are the first three adjectives you want them to think of? And how can they visually identify or reinforce those descriptors, right? Think about colors, think about fonts, think about imagery. And I want you to really consider what emotional impact you want to have. What emotions do you want your clients to feel when they interact with your brand? And how can your brand's visual elements and messaging evoke those feelings in your consumers? And then there's this whole idea of the client journey, right? So consider your client's journey from discovery to closing. How do they meet you? How do you convert them? How do you build the relationship? And what does the transaction look like when they're working with you? How should your brand's visual identity support and enhance their experience at each of those stages? Right? How can they identify that experience with your brand? And then, of course, we want to think about being distinct and memorable. What unique visual elements can you incorporate into your brand to ensure that it stands out and remains memorable in a competitive real estate market? Most of us are in markets with lots and lots of real estate competitors. Very few real estate markets have a dominant agent with a powerful brand. And it's because they haven't gone through this process. And so that can be you. But how are you going to differentiate? You have to ask yourself these questions. And how can you ensure that your brand's look and feel are consistently represented across all platforms, materials, from website to social media to print collateral? And this is key. I've met a lot of agents who have phenomenal logos and phenomenal mission statements, but they don't communicate that mission statement or represent that logo consistently across their platform. So their consumers have no idea what those things are for them. So when you are going to build your brand, when you go to install your brand, it's very, very important that you spend time being intentional about how your brand is represented across every channel. Now, moving on, you've got to define your brand and not just the what, but the why, right? So, who are you? What are your core values and beliefs? And what unique traits or strengths are you going to bring to your work for your consumer? What do you stand for? What is your mission in the real estate industry, right? What are the key principles that guide your professional actions? And for some reason, this can be a really difficult question for some folks to answer. And so, what sometimes we end up doing is I will ask my clients to list out 5 to 10 things that are absolute non-starters for them being in business with someone. Like, what is a reason that you would absolutely not do business with somebody? Right? If somebody was dishonest or unethical, those kinds of things, if that is like a hard stop for you, that's where you draw the line. I would never want to be in business with that person. The opposite is who you are, right? So think about what you absolutely do not want to be, and then know that the opposite of that, that's who you are. That's what you're striving for. And then what is your unique value proposition? Like, what makes you different from other real estate professionals? And what can clients get from you that they cannot get from anyone else? And this is another hard question. A lot of times I have agents be honest and say, I'm not really sure why I'm unique. Well, that's a challenge in and of itself, right? I want you to sit down, think about your process, think about your client experience, and at every stage, look at how you can systematically elevate that experience for your client. And when you do that, you are creating your unique value proposition. It is your client experience every time. It's your negotiation performance that translates to the client experience, right? It's your, 7-star touch at the end with the beautiful presentation of the homes. It's your process that's going to set you apart. That is your UVP. And how do you want to be perceived? What words do you want people to associate with you and your brand? Are you somebody who wants to be seen as the life of the party, the social representative, right? Your social mayor of whatever town you're living in? Are you somebody that wants to be an absolute authority in the industry? Are you somebody that wants to be seen as a community hero that gives back to the community consistently and makes a difference for those who are living there? What is the persona that you want to be perceived as? And are you living a life that communicates that message? And is your brand communicating that message? And let's talk about what is your professional persona in that same breath? How do you behave in professional settings? Is it the same way you behave in social settings? Is it the same way you behave in, network settings? What is the tone and language that you use in your professional communications? And are you certain that that is absolutely consistent in every public facing piece that goes out and represents you? And think about, what are your professional goals? What do you want to achieve in your real estate career? And how does your brand help you reach those goals? Is your brand helping you reach those goals? And what is your story? What is your background? How has it influenced your career in real estate? And how do your experiences add depth and authenticity to your personal brand? Are you holding that kind of secret? Are you holding those cards close to the chest? Are you feeling like you can't tell people where you came from and how you got here? And is that because you're ashamed of it? Is it because you fear what people might think? Or is it because you don't know how to communicate it? And if you did communicate it, would you more authentically connect with the right people who you are intended to help? These are the questions that are so important for you to answer for yourself. How do you communicate your brand? What channels are you going to use to express this brand? And unpopular opinion, I genuinely don't believe that it has to be any particular formula. Social media is a big one. A lot of people are on social media. It is a cost-effective, large audience to access. And if that's not you, that's okay. Is it your website? Is it networking events? Is it print collateral? Is it geographic farming? Is it demographic farming? What is it? And it's okay for it to be any combination of any of the above. You just need to be intentional about it. And so what kind of content are you going to create to deliver through those social or those channels to convey your overall brand message? How will you measure your success once you've done it? And this is key. What metrics or feedback will indicate to you that your personal brand is resonating with your audience? Because this is one of those things that can feel very intangible. But if you're not setting tangible goals, you'll never really know if you're going in the right direction. So it's important that you look for measurable, specific benchmarks when you are launching that brand. And as you're getting that feedback, as you are seeing how long it's taking you to achieve or not achieve your set benchmarks, then you need to have a strategy in place to make adjustments. So these are all things you want to think about. And then once you've thought about them, once you've decided what your brand is going to look like, what your brand is going to say, now you need to decide definitively how your brand is going to be presented. And this is, again, where a lot of times people make a mistake. They will go through, spend a bunch of money selecting everything that they need to select. They've got their fonts, their colors, their logos, but they don't put any parameters around how that content is going to be used. And then they hire a marketing team or a VA or an assistant to take over. And those people do not understand your brand. Those people didn't go through this process with you of defining your visual standard, of defining your goals, of defining your why, and they have not yet internalized your messaging. And without some sort of guideline, it can just get harried all over the place, and you've completely diluted the value of the brand. So it's going to be important for you that you have a set of defined brand standards if there's going to be any third party involved in producing your marketing collateral. And it's going to be very simple things. You need logo usage, you need a color palette, you need to define your typography, your typefaces and font styles by heading, by body text, by any unusual element. How are you going to acknowledge quotes? How are you going to acknowledge subtext or subtitles or whatever the case may be? Have everything very intentionally defined. Even go as far as to define your imagery style, right? Are you looking for bold, geometric, harsh images? Are you looking for light, airy, organic images? Are you looking for modern, clean, sporty images? You need to let your people know what your brand is supposed to look like. You need to define for them what the tone and voice should be behind every single piece of collateral that is distributed under your brand. You need to absolutely clarify your brand messaging. What are your key messages, your value proposition, your taglines that communicate your brand's core principles and goals? Because you have to make sure those things are consistent. You need to define your brand values and your mission. You need to articulate your core values and your mission statement for your brand to make sure that all actions and communications are 100% aligned with those principles. You need to have very clear social media guidelines. Specify how your brand should be presented in social media. Make sure it's very, very clear what every post should look, sound, and feel like to the consumer. And absolutely provide examples. Provide examples of what it should look like. Provide examples of what it should not look like. Because you can't be upset if someone doesn't understand what you never told them. So you've got to be very, very, very clear with your brand standards. Hopefully that all makes sense. I hope. With that, your last real step is just about installing the brand, making sure that all of your pieces are 100% cohesive and consistent in messaging, in visual, in just feeling, right? Do you have a dialed in listing presentation? Do you have a dialed in buyer presentation? Do you have dialed in direct mail templates if that's something that you are going to actively participate in? Do you have a dialed in property flyer? Do you have dialed in property brochures, social media templates, both for property announcements and client testimonials? Do you have your email signature line dialed in? And I know that sounds silly, but that is a big piece of your brand. That is the piece of your brand that people see most frequently. Do you have stationery? Do you have cards? Whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you're going to use that represents your brand, is it dialed in? Is it cohesive? Is it clean? So that's really all I have for you today. It's going to be a short day, but these are the questions that I want you to ask yourself as you're going through the process of developing your own brand, because it's a journey and this can be a great guide. If you do have questions, if you want to connect with us to have a professional partner in this journey, we're more than happy to help you. But if this is something you want to take on as an individual, this should be your foundation, your starting place right here. All right, guys, with that, I'm going to send you off and wish you a fantastically productive day.